and the Toledo Rockets, their second-year head coach at the helm there, Mr. Mark Batman. And we are excited to have you join us here once again here on the National Soccer Network.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
No, we are excited. And I know I said Batman, but it's actually pronounced
Batman.
Batman. So it's not Batman, but Batman. I wanted to do that on purpose because I would imagine for most of your life, if not your entirety of your life, you've had to, on some level, talk about the uniqueness of your last name.
Oh yeah, I could go on story upon story upon story. I mean, we had to get our number changed when I was a kid, when the original Batman movies are coming out, because we get phone calls at like 1 a.m. and then we had to unlist it. I was never Batman at Halloween, though. Never. And I always tell people, because I live it every day, why would I dress up as somebody that I'm not? So, yeah.
That was actually going to be my question. I was actually going to ask. I was imagining that you would have never been Batman because, again, you live it for 365 days a year. Why do it on purpose?
That's right. You don't wear, if you're in the band Pearl Jam, you don't wear your T-shirt, right? So, yeah.
Well, they do say that not all heroes wear capes, and so you being a head coach of a women's soccer program, not only this one but also in Northern Ohio. I mean, you've had great success at your schools, and I want to talk about your job now here at Toledo. You're taking over a program. I know early going of this, you're trying to get through it and trying to figure out a way to get this program in the right path. What has been your biggest challenge here so far since taking over?
It's just the MAC is tough. It's such a hard conference, and the parity is so even every single game. There are teams that finish in the top two 1 year and then finish in 11th the following year. It's crazy how tight the parity is in the conference. I don't think that's a challenge. Look at that as opportunity. I think our goal is to be consistently a top 4 team in the MAC, and that's a big reason why I took this new challenge. Coming from an environment where I was and looking at, okay, let's try to do the exact same thing at Ohio Northern that we did for so long and try and recreate that year.
That's a tough thing to do too, going from a Division III level at Ohio Northern, which obviously you had a lot of success there, coming from there to a place like Toledo. Jumping levels like that can be tough. I mean, it can be tough on teams, but it can also be tough on coaches because there's a new, obviously, level of expectations. But in terms of the resources, and you talked about coming in the MAC too, and in terms of competitiveness, really top to bottom, it's one of the more competitive conferences that you can join. What have some of those challenges looked like coming from a place like Ohio Northern now into this position with Toledo, and how's it been adjusting to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think our support at Ohio Northern was very, very good, not just from a budgetary standpoint, but from a collegiality standpoint, and that was important for me. And those are some of the questions that I asked, making that transition here when they were kind of recruiting me for the position of, why haven't we been as successful as we potentially should be? Location here is fantastic. We're right in the middle of the MAC. Everything's a bus trip, aside of UMass that's now joined. So that'll be a weekend-long trip with UMass and Buffalo. Budget is very, very comparable to our goals. Our staffing is great. Facilities are great. We don't have men's soccer, so everything is just ours. So there's a lot of positives of this place. It's just getting it all aligned. And I'm not a very patient guy, but I've learned to be fairly patient with this process because we know that we are making improvements daily, weekly, with recruiting efforts, transfers, with all of it. So it's gonna take some time, but we're excited about it.
It's tough to be patient in the world of sports. It's all about, what have you done for me lately and what have you produced? I mean, that's we're in a results-based business. We talk about that all the time. On the other side of that coin, though, what do you carry with you from your experience at that D3 level with Ohio Northern? What stays the same in your mind? What do you carry into Toledo that maybe it's the way you coach, maybe it's something else, another element. What do you carry with you that works now in your position here with the Rockets?
I think some big things. The culture piece for me is huge. How we treat these girls every single day. We are very sure to not just look at them as soccer players, but human beings, and developing those genuine relationships with them where they feel comfortable coming to talk with us about whatever challenges kind of they're going through. Because at the end of the day, they're student athletes for about 3 hours a day, and they're human beings, and they get pulled in a lot of different different ways. And those are things that were very important for me coming from Ohio Northern and instilling some of that stuff here. And the first 5 months, we had this big area that is like a lounge area for them. So they spend some time in there between classes and or pregame or whatever. That place was a ghost town. And after about 5 months, that first semester, that place was packed before practice. So that told me that we are doing things the right way. If we can figure those little pieces out, results, wins, all that stuff will follow.
You know, they say that, you know, obviously culture is extremely important, but also having a clear set of standards that the team has to live by, right? I would imagine in your time as a coach, your non-negotiables have probably changed in some level, or you've stuck to certain non-negotiables, right? And we here in Michigan have had a chance to be around a lot of great coaches who say that their non-negotiables have changed because society and the game has changed. And so I'm curious, what are your non-negotiables as a coach? What are the things that you hold that say that will stand the test of time? But others, maybe, you know what, hey, I can give a little bit on this one because times have changed. I don't need to be so firm or so strict.
Yeah, there's three main, I think, kind of things that are very true and dear to us. And the first one is respect. You know, respecting opportunity, respecting your teammates, respecting the coaching staff, respecting your campus community, respecting the city that you're in. You know, that stuff goes a long way for us. That kind of goes with how these girls treat each other every single day. You know, we don't expect a group of they're a bunch of sisters, man. Like we don't expect them to all be best friends. You know, but there has to be a mutual respect, you know, amongst them day to day. You know, and sometimes they just need to be reminded of what that looks like. You know, we just like every other team. There are girls that aren't used to sharing a bathroom or a living space or whatever, just based on how they grew up. And so, you know, when you have such a young team like we have right now, those are things that are, you know, daily reminders for them. I think two other pieces: trust. That's a huge thing. That's such a hard thing to gain, an easy thing to lose, and that's something that's near and dear to us. You know, we will always be transparent in our conversation with them if they ask the hard questions, and we're not mean about our answers or, you know, disrespectful, but we're giving them the information that they need so that they can continue to grow as young adults. Because that's at the end of the day, that's the job, right? Get them ready for what's next. Soccer's just a part of that, you know. And the last part is the integrity piece, you know. And those three things for us are, I'm not gonna say our pillars, but those are three things that, you know, if they handle those things really well every single day, regardless of what profession they go into, they're going to be successful. They'll be successful moms. They'll be successful heads of the household, family, whatever, you know. And sport is just an advocate of part of, you know, of how they get there for that. So.
And we've seen your players succeed in the classroom a lot, just in the small sample size that you've been at Toledo. And a lot of coaches have talked about that too. Like, success beyond the program looks so many different ways. It could be playing professionally, but it also could be having a family or getting a career or doing any of those other things. How much pride do you take in seeing what your players have been able to do in the classroom? Maybe not necessarily on the field, but what they've done off the field, because it's good to keep that perspective. I still think that's an important piece.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. You know, our team, I joke with them all the time. They're a bunch of, you know, nerds living in the library. You know, and I think that's funny is, you know, most people think Division III kids only care about grades. No, they are just as competitive and care just as much about sport as Division I kids. And the other part is most people think Division I kids don't care about grades. They think it's the exact opposite. And these kids stress just as much as our kids at Ohio Northern did on exam days or homework or labs or whatever, or running from lab to get to practice, you know, those sorts of things. So it is really, really rewarding to see how successful some of these girls are after they're done. The annoying part is they all run marathons and stuff now. So it's like, why you run that drive? Where's that drive when you were here? I had to get you
Where was that?
Go do the extra, you know. But I think it's great. You know, I've had a ton of ONU alum come to road games when Toledo's traveling, because we have kids all over the place and they all have families now. And, you know, it puts things in perspective too. Like, okay, I did my part in that person's life, to the fact that you're driving an hour when we're playing in Indianapolis to come see us. You know, that part is really, really rewarding.
You know, we talk a lot about the dynamics at play when it comes to soccer and specifically college soccer. there's a lot of opportunity for young women to go play soccer at the collegiate level in this country. Obviously, we actually talk about at the Division I level. I think it's twice as many opportunities, and so that means that there's a lot of players out there who are fighting to go play at the highest of level. And there's a lot of I'm assuming you're getting inundated with players a lot, through the recruitment process. When we talk with schools in the mid-major world, we ask the question about them being a destination school or them being a pass-through, because in today's transfer portal world, it could be that, right, where players are going to come there and they're going to use your program to get to the next level, and they might stay there for 4 years. There's obviously a variation of all of those things. Do you consider Toledo to be a destination school in the MAC, or do you consider it to be a school where players can get both be a destination as well as that pass-through if they're looking to go to that next level?
I think the goal will be both. Our main recruiting, I guess the backbone of recruiting philosophy is we want girls that love this place when soccer's not happening. Now I think it's a great compliment if a girl comes here, we develop her for 2 years, and then she goes on to be, transfers to a top 30 Division I program. I would consider that a really, really good compliment of how we develop people. And at some point, that's going to happen for us. At some point, we're going to lose a kid to the portal, that is looking for the next bigger thing, or wants to go play in the SEC or ACC or something like that. But the long-term goal would be, why can't we be that program that people want to come to, rather than just lose kids. I think the MAC, as far as a mid-major soccer conference, it has got to be one of the hardest ones in the country. Just because of the parity and the special players that are in it. You have Western and Buffalo, arguably two of the best, most consistent teams in the MAC that, Sean goes to Pitt and beats Pitt. Lewis goes to Michigan and beats Michigan. That's the type of programs, and I said earlier, like that's where we aspire to get to. Aaron at Ohio is doing some really good things there. And I could go on and on and on, but those are the programs that we are not necessarily mirroring or anything like that, but that's the long-term goal of getting there.
Yeah, another thing that we talk a lot about, and we had a chance to talk with Coach Burke here earlier, the same question about being consistent, right? At Ohio Northern, consistency was part of your program, right? You guys had a long history of success there, and staying consistent can be the most challenging things that you can do. Obviously, there's got to be a recipe. You've talked about the pillars, so to speak. But what has been your biggest part of building consistency within your role as the coach? Because I would imagine, again, the family and all those things. But again, we're living in this very different world. We're trying to find the player, the talent, that culture that you're trying to build, and then being consistent within your results can also be the most challenging.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of things need to maintain consistently. Our recruiting philosophy and the type of kid that we try and go after. The way I lead or try to lead this group positively every single day and help them navigate all the ups and downs of a college soccer experience. Consistent practice habits, consistent travel habits. I get made fun of a lot, but I'm a big routine person. And once you find that routine for success, you got to consistently stick with it. And sometimes when you have such a young group, they need to get reminded of what those winning habits look like every single day. And ironically enough, that's kind of what we talked about yesterday, prior to practice, and everybody kind of had a voice of what that looks like for them. But it's the consistent message. It's consistent standard that we're asking from them, regardless of how they're feeling. If they're only feeling 80%, no one's going to go through a season at 100. Well, we need 100 of your 80%. We can't have 80 of 80, and those are the things that help us consistently compete and put ourselves in conversation of winning games.
No, that's that's fantastic. And obviously it takes great players, it takes great assistant coaches, it takes an entire village to bring out an unbelievable team and a team that can go far. What is that player that you're looking for at Toledo? Because when we talk about players, there's a lot of talented players out there. It's not so much about finding the most talented players, it's about finding the right player, right? And so that college athlete out there, that freshman who's looking to come to Toledo or looking to play at a high level, what's your message to that player who's like, hey, I want to maybe go to Toledo and maybe play for Coach and for this university?
Yeah, I think, that's a great question. I think, what they, I guess, could expect is we're going to make them as uncomfortable as possible all the time because that's where they grow, and kind of learn from those failure moments, but also embrace, the winning moments. And they have little winning moments every single day. I think what we look for in specific kids, we have done a lot now of research of like, okay, who these kids are, talk to guidance counselors, talk to club coaches, if, this is such a small kind of big recruiting world that if we don't know somebody, one of our staff members does, or another staff member does, or whatever. So, really doing the research to figure out why this kid is choosing Toledo and not just because she wants to play soccer, I think is a big part of it. Because if you find those kids that really fit what you're looking for, and for us, it's a really simple blueprint, great soccer player that comes from a great family that is the most competitive kid that we have, right? Like those three things for us, are the things that we look for. And how do you find it? Man, we get a lot more out of watching a team or an individual play that's losing by 2 versus winning by 4.
Yeah.
And we'll watch mannerisms after the game. If they lost, like, what are they upset? Are they going straight to their phone? Are they going straight to family? We'll watch body language of parents on the sidelines. And that tells us who this kid potentially could be. So there's a lot of little things that, goes into it. And it's not just the X's and O's, like to your point. It's a lot of character evaluation and seeing how they really fit kind of what we're looking for. And we don't recruit to a specific system. I've always liked recruiting the best kids we possibly can and then figure it out later. Because if you recruit to a system and you lose 4 kids like we have, we're down 4 center backs right now, and we hope to get 1 back, but we're definitely down 3 for the year. If we have versatility, okay, we can still go and be competitive. Rather than, oh, we only have 3 center backs, now we have to change the system, or what do we do? Rather than throwing some versatility back there. Like we've made 2 center mids outside backs, and they're really comfortable in the ball and they're very athletic, and it's just teaching them the shape and some other little 1v1 stuff that maybe they're not used to of being in the midfield, just stuff like that. So.
Yeah, we here at NSN to kind of wrap this up. We're Michigan folks, right? So we're big Detroit sports fans with everything. Obviously, the Tigers being one of those, and their AAA affiliate, the Mud Hens, are in Toledo. So I've been to Toledo a few different times, obviously to see the Hens play. Haven't gotten to stick around a whole lot, so I am curious because I will be down there in the future at some point. When you come back from these road trips, wherever it may be in the MAC, and you get back into Toledo and you got one place to go eat, what's your favorite restaurant? What's your destination? What's your spot you would recommend to someone coming to Toledo, maybe for the first time?
Man, am I avoiding parents? And I'm just kidding. No, never. There's a few spots. If you want to go downtown, Dirty Bird is fantastic. Great menu, good drink list. Casual Pint is about a mile from campus. They have about 30 different kind of beers and stuff on tap, and really, really good bar food. And then if you're a pizza guy or love pizza, a Stubborn Brother, which is right on campus. Barstool Sports rated it best college slice in America. Unique story behind it. There's 3 brothers in town that all own restaurants. 2 of them wanted to open up a New York style pizzeria, and 1 didn't. And so the other 2 opened it up and called it a Stubborn Brother, and they're crushing it. So, I don't know if they let them back in or what, but I coached one of their daughters in youth soccer for about 3 or 4 years, so that's why I kind of know the story.
I'm normally a Chicago style guy. I like mine to look like an actual pie, but I'll go fold it just to try it because I trust Barstool on that.
It's special. It's good. It's good. So.
Well, Coach, we appreciate stopping by here today. We're excited about what you're doing there at Toledo and look forward to seeing what you can continue to do there in the MAC.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Experience the thrill that came like never before with NSN's Game Rewind. Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics, letting you relive the highs